United States, Africa, we salute ya. A new state of mind, I introduce ya. Close your eyes and visualize the rise of a new paradigm. Solar powered skyscrapers. Welcome to the Africa Must Unite podcast, a podcast dedicated to inspiring African people worldwide to rise up, organize, and struggle for Pan-Africanism, a unified, liberated, socialist Africa, the only permanent solution to the exploitation and oppression of African people, no matter where they happen to be born or happen to live in the world. Now, please, welcome the host of Africa Must Unite.
Greetings.
Sorry about that, Mama D. I am Brother Terrence here from the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party.
And I am Mama D. Welcome to another. What does this make for us, Terrence?
This makes number 35.
That is wonderful. 35 podcasts. We are happy to be here. We are the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party. And this is the Africa Must Unite podcast. Oh, we are glad to be here. And as always, we want to start off with our calendar dates for the month of November.
Yes.
And the first thing that we have on November the 2nd, Assata Shakur, political prisoner, escapes U.S. prison after serving over 6 years of her life sentence in 1979. On the 3rd of November, Dominica Independence Day, 1978. On the 7th of November, Africans revolted successfully on the slave ship Creole in 1841. And on this same date, the 7th, the UN Declaration on Eliminating Discrimination Against Women in 1967. On the 8th, a massive demonstration in Luanda by Angolan people to celebrate their heroic victory over Western imperialism in 1974. On the 11th of November, Shirley Graham Du Bois, Pan-Africanist and wife of W.E.B. Du Bois, was born in 1896. And this is also Angola Political Independence Day that began in 1975. On the 13th, the first anti-slavery political party was established in 1839, and it was called the Liberty Party. On the 15th, in 1884, beginning in 1884 and going to 1885, Berlin Conference of Imperialist European countries and the U.S. as a most interested observer, Balkanized Africa. And on this same day, November 15th, 1998, Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, died. On the 16th, Chinua Achebe, African novelist, was born in 1930. On the 17th, African General Enrique Diaz won major battle in Brazil against the Dutch in 1636. On the 19th of November, progressive leader Modibo Keita was overthrown in Mali in 1968. On the 22nd of November, Guinean masses repulsed imperialist aggression in 1970, and ZANU, that's who we're talking about today, of Zimbabwe, or we're talking about Zimbabwe anyway today, launched guerrilla war in 1972. On the 23rd, J. Love invented the pencil sharpener in 1897, and Morocco began the fight against Spain for liberation of what was then Spanish Morocco in 1957. On the 25th, guess what organization was started in November?
Yes.
Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party was founded in Washington, D.C. in 1983. On this same date of the 25th of November, Fidel Castro, revolutionary and first president of Socialist Cuba died in 2016, and on the 26th, the death of Sojourner Truth, African freedom fighter and women's rights advocate in 1883. Well, those are some of the very important dates in November. There are many, but those are some. And we want to get started with what we have for this month's podcast. And we always begin by giving a little introduction to what we've been trying to do all this year of 2020. And we are focusing on revolutionary Pan-African socialist organizations, those at home and those in the diaspora, whose objective is a unified socialist Africa. And why? It's because we believe that our people should know about the organizations that are out there struggling to bring about a permanent solution to their exploitation and oppression. In Class Struggle in Africa, Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah wrote, quote, "The total liberation and unification of Africa under an all-African socialist government must be the primary objective of all black revolutionaries throughout the world. It is an objective which, when achieved, will bring about the fulfillment of the aspirations of Africans and people of African descent everywhere," end quote. So these revolutionary Pan-African socialist organizations that we've been highlighting all this year are determined to work together in order to more effectively politically educate our people and thus to more quickly bring into existence a unified socialist Africa, so that the wealth that is generated from the richest continent in the world, Africa, will be used to benefit all people of African descent, all Africans, no matter where they happen to be born or to live in this world. And so, Terrence, we are so delighted to feature this month the Zimbabwe Movement of Pan-African Socialists.
Yes, Zimbabwe Movement of Pan-African Socialists. This a little bit about this organization here. In our calendar piece here, we have their preamble. So we want to read this for you. Whereas we, the people of Africa, have protracted and proud history of sacrifice and rich culture of heritage, and whereas we, the people of Africa, have always cherished our sovereignty by resisting aggression and foreign domination, and whereas we, the people of Africa, honor our forebears and compatriots who toiled for the progress of our heroic resistance to colonialism, racism, and all forms of domination and oppression. And whereas we are desirous to unite our continent permanently, preserve peace, order, and good governance, guarantee political stability, social and economic development, and whereas we are convinced that political stability, peace, order, and good governance, social and economic development can only be achieved under the conditions of a one united socialist Africa. And whereas we, the people of Africa, desire to preserve and consolidate total independence, to build a united, progressive, permanent political and social order. And whereas we, the people of Africa, will struggle to resurrect our homeland, and whereas we, the people of Africa, are determined to overcome all challenges and obstacles that impede our progress. And now, therefore, we, the members of the Zimbabwe Movement of Pan-African Socialists, assembled and united under ZIMOPAS, to hereby adopt and grant unto ourselves this Constitution.
Wow, that's a beautiful, beautiful Constitution, isn't it, Terrence?
Yes.
That is
sounds
wonderful.
Much better than the one in the U.S.
Of course. And, we want to bring on board now one of the representatives from the organization. She's a publicity person, and we want, without any further ado, to bring her on to share with us their mission and their objective and all other facts that that'll benefit us. So that's what we're going to do. We say it one more time. Greetings, revolutionary greetings, my sister. How are you?
Great, thank you, Sister Dorothy. Revolutionary greetings to you too.
And we have Brother Terrence. Terrence, you'll introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm Brother Terrence of the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party. And we'd like to thank you for coming on board.
Right, thank you very much for having me.
Okay.
Now, sister, tell us your name and your position in the organization, because we've just been raving about the organization here.
Okay, my name is Tipe Lurata Dube. I am the Secretary for Information and Publicity for an organization called the Zimbabwe Movement of Pan-African Socialists, ZIMOPAS. And we're based in Zimbabwe. We are from Zimbabwe, and we're based in Gweru, that is in the Midlands province.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes. We want to start off by asking you, can you tell us a little history about Zimbabwe's struggle in Zimbabwe?
Well, Zimbabwe is a country that is located in the southern part of the African continent. And Zimbabwe gained its independence in 1980 from British rule. We officially colonized by the British by a company known as the British South Africa Company that was owned by Cecil John Rhodes in 1896. So throughout our history, we've been an oppressed people. And fortunately for us, there were brave men and women who fought a protracted liberation struggle that ended formal colonial rule. But therein lies the problem that even in 1980, when we gained independence, we're not independent in the true sense. That is in the economic sense.
Yes, of course. And I was just reading some things because we do a lot of study of Osagyefo, Kwame Nkrumah, and I remember when that struggle was going on, and you had that vicious Prime Minister or President Ian Smith there, trying to say that African people in Zimbabwe couldn't have the vote. And Nkrumah began marshaling forces from throughout the continent to kind of create an army to go in to try to help Zimbabwe. But, it's just a fascinating history in terms of how imperialism tries to, undermine and exploit and oppress all of our people, including what happened in terms of the history of Zimbabwe.
Well, that's absolutely true, because we owe a lot of, we owe our success in the liberation struggle to our brothers and sisters across the continent. Ghana was very instrumental. We know that Tanzania, Zambia, all of these countries, Mozambique, helped. We set up, the then liberation fighters, or rather guerrilla fighters, set up camps where they were training people and, assisting us by giving us arms and, having that ideological training that was very central to winning the liberation struggle. So we're very, very grateful, because I think Zimbabwe's independence wasn't just about Zimbabwe in itself, but it was also a very, very collective effort amongst Africans, as well as, I have other nations that were sympathetic to our cause, China and I think China and Russia as well. Very grateful, and they have our deepest gratitude as an organization, because we couldn't have done it on our own.
And that's true, and that's true today too, isn't it, Sister Tipe? Because it's going to take a collective effort. That's what we've been talking about, a unified effort in terms of countries in Africa and all, to just help us to struggle against neocolonialism today.
Well, that is very, very true. And I think I would like to highlight that, one of the biggest impediments to a struggle as Pan-Africanists is not, we know that, we have a common enemy, but now our enemy has infiltrated us as, Africans. We have other black people who are supporting these imperialist interests in Africa. I'm sure that you've been following the issue, like you've been following developments in Zimbabwe, say, over the past 20 years. And, it's very disheartening that we have some people who claim to be, we have our brothers and sisters who claim to be African, but are not African in terms of ideology, in terms of thought, and in terms of spirit. They're there to, advance imperialist, the imperialist, neo-imperialist and neo-colonial agenda in Zimbabwe. So these are among some of the struggles that we're facing as an organization, because I think one of the key things is that people have, Africans in themselves, especially the youth, have become very disillusioned.
Yes.
With the Pan-Africanist movement. They become disillusioned with the goals and the ethos of liberation movements across Africa, particularly in Southern Africa, which is actually the most stable regional bloc in Africa.
I mean, that's an important point. And Nkrumah and class struggle in Africa called these puppets of the imperialists and neo-colonialists as our true enemy. These are the ones that are really holding us back. And we always say people who look like us don't always act in our best interest. So it's not just about the color of your skin or race or anything like that.
No, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true. These are the struggles that we're facing. And like I'm saying, I think you've highlighted that, just because you look like us or behave like us, you're not part of us. Because right now, as Zimbabweans, as ZIMOPAS, our biggest struggle right now is one of our biggest struggle is the weaponization of sentiment against the government of Zimbabwe, against Southern African governments in particular. There's been these protracted and very, very significant attacks on the personality and character of Zimbabwe, to the point that when you see some of these images and you hear Zimbabwe being discussed even on social media, on these Western controlled TV stations, you'd actually think that Zimbabwe is a war zone, but it's not like that.
And the thing that's never mentioned either, Tipe, is the whole business of sanctions. They talk about, inflation is horrible and employment, but they don't talk about the sanctions that the U.S. and other places have imposed upon countries like Zimbabwe.
Of course they don't, because they know the level of damage that they've, the level of damage that they've, created really on Zimbabwe by sanctions alone. You know what? As an organization, as ZIMOPAS, we are very realistic. I think we try to apply a lot of realism in our functions. And, yes, there are allegations of, we do have problems of corruption. Like any other country, we have our own issues. But sanctions have played a very, very, very huge role in Zimbabwe. And I think the problem is right now is that there's always this argument amongst Western governments that sanctions were imposed because of the lack of respect for property rights, which is totally untrue, because this wasn't about us. It wasn't about land reform. Land reform is not the issue. The issue is that we took land from white people. Yes. And redistributed it amongst our populace. That is where the crux of the matter is. And, it's not really about property rights and African people's, like black or indigenous people's property rights. It's about white settler community rights. And, the really sad part of it is that one of our beliefs as an organization, as Africans, is that our economy is in the land, and the land is our economy. And you'd realize that Zimbabwe is a resource-rich nation. Mm-hmm. And, one of the things that I would like to highlight to you is that just after land reform, there are all these, all of a sudden we're hearing of diamonds and things that we previously, they're officially on our records about maybe a few diamond mines, maybe one or two. But most of these actually, people discover, alluvial diamonds on properties or tracts of land that were previously owned by the white settler community. which proves one thing, that our wealth was already, these guys knew about it. They were just smuggling our wealth out of the country. And the majority, the indigenous black population, did not benefit from those diamonds. So obviously, there's an element that I'd highlight there, the element of looting, of stealing from indigenous people, that land reform, in a way, put an end to that. They can't get our resources for, willy-nilly and all that stuff. So I think that's one of the very, very key issues that we need to move away from. As Africans, we need to enlighten ourselves and move away from this notion that, sanctions on Zimbabwe are about property rights. It's just about us, pissing off a few white people in Washington or in England, wherever.
That's
You're right, sister. Since the arrival of Cecil Rhodes, they've been pillaging the land and scrambling for the resources. So you are absolutely correct there. Could you tell us a little bit background of the organization and when it started, what you all do?
Okay, ZIMOPAS was formed in 2009, and it was, I think, under the vision of, I'm sure you're very, very well acquainted with our chairman, Comrade Mafa. He was very instrumental in its formation, and right now we've grown to over 250 members in Zimbabwe. And really our mandate really is to push for a united socialist Africa.
Oh, yes.
And our agenda really, that is our agenda, to push for that. And one of our amongst our objectives, obviously, challenge imperialist hegemonic tendencies, not only in Zimbabwe but in Africa. We seek to cooperate with other organizations like ourselves, like yours actually. We also have affiliates with other organizations, and we're also really passionate about, learning from the experiences of other indigenous peoples across the globe, which means that we're not restricted to just Africans, but we also, we've got Asians, Indians, people in Brazil, Red Indians, and all that stuff. And one of the key things that I think our organization would like to do is that our organization actually does is to lobby government for a more Pan-African centric policies. In, take for example, in education, in foreign policy, and also other issues, even in just, generally laws that are being passed. We act more as a watchdog. We are also very, very we act as a watchdog. We're also keen on promoting the image of Zimbabwe and, really clarifying most of this nonsense that's been going around, and showing that, Zimbabwe is really a peaceful group of people who are very peace-loving, who have been able to coexist with many different nationalities. But at the same time, we feel that sometimes our good graces have been taken advantage of because we're perceived to be a very docile people. So these are among some of the things that we're doing. And in terms of programs, we are currently working on starting a quiz, a Pan-African quiz, and a Pan-African essay writing competition for children in Zimbabwe. We're also supposed to launch a Pan-African this year, but unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we've had to shelve that until probably next year, or at least when we feel that, there's more travel. Because I think one of the things that we'd love to do, internet is great, but I think people in Zimbabwe need to see other African people from other nations, speaking with one voice.
That is so true.
And I think that is pretty much most of what we do. And I would like to say that part of our work is, I've said we're also a watchdog, and our objective is to also neutralize and make a way, because we also act we believe that our responsibility is to our government and to our people. So our issue there is to vocalize the things that we see that they may not have seen. So take, for example, there's been a very topical issue in Zimbabwe parties, where 22 are non-governmental organizations pushing, have petitioned the government, in fact, the parliament of to avail contraceptives to 12-year-old girls. And, this is really disturbing because we're seeing that this is replication of this neo-colonial agenda whereby we're now taking this war into the wombs. So, when at times people tend to brush these things off and say that, oh, well, our kids, they're naughty, they're indulging in all that. But in our tell us that we, in our ethos, our norms and values, do not agree with that. That it is wrong, that children are children, and once we allow such things to happen, what else is going to come next? So these are some that we're dealing with as an organization.
Wow, you're right. And that was our next question, kind of touching on the current reality in Zimbabwe, and what you said about the 12-year-old girls. Definitely touches upon that.
Yeah, I think really it's all the questions have been dealt with. Really, it's beautiful. I mean, it's just phenomenal the work that you all are doing, and and the last question we had was on why a unified socialist Africa, but Sister Tipe, Terrence has already addressed that question, so it's been a wonderful discussion.
Well, it has been. I could say a lot more because it's not just about 12-year-old girls. We've got a compensation thing going on. We've got politics. There's a lot of things that are going on in Zimbabwe right now. Yes. A lot of things that I think are very critical in the sense that they'll shape our future, and I guess in the sense that maybe our brothers and sisters across the globe can learn from.
And one of
the things that I'll touch upon, which has been really contentious, is about land reform and about compensation for white farmers. And our reality as Zimbabweans right now is that in 2013, Zimbabwe went to a referendum in which we voted for a new constitution. And within this new constitution, there is a clause that says that we must compensate white farmers for land, for improvements, actually. So I think there's need for clarity around this issue because there've been allegations that our liberation movement, which is ZANU-PF, is reneging on the gains of the independent struggle, is reneging on the gains of the land reform. But like I said before, we need to apply a lot of realism in whatever it is that we're doing. And as far as the Zimbabwean constitution, Zimbabweans voted overwhelmingly for that constitution. In fact, I think it was about 95% voted yes. So consequently, our governments are tied behind their backs. But at the same time, we must remember that the will of the people must be respected, even though we feel that it is not in our best interests to be compensating white commercial farmers, because in the first place, as far as we're concerned, this is stolen land.
That's the whole point.
And subject to common law, you can't compensate something.
That's the whole point.
Sorry?
It's so sad, but you compensating a thief for stealing your land.
Yes.
and profiting from it all these years.
Exactly. So this is what we're saying, that we do not agree with this, but the people of Zimbabwe voted for this for that particular clause in the constitution. But then it brings us back to the same question that we were talking about, these imperialist forces within our society. This particular clause was never publicized.
But also Sister Tipe, it's also a thing where it shows us the amount of work that we still have to do in terms of politically educating our people, because it's a thing of, the knowing the history and knowledge and and all that has happened to us as a people. I don't care if we're at home in Africa, if we live in Zimbabwe, or we're here in the United Snakes, North America. It's still exploitation and oppression, and we need to know that history so that we can make a more informed decision when it comes to voting for anything.
No, that's absolutely true. And I think one of the things that we are advocating for as an organization is the introduction of a more Afrocentric curriculum in our education.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, it's been very, very Western, and that did not work in our favor. But I'm saying that right now, as an organization, we're encouraged because there are more and more people who have become more aware of what it is that is happening in our country. I think now we can really tell the fakes from the originals. So I think slowly but surely we are getting there. But the underlying factor is, this is not just about, neocolonialism is presenting itself in so many forms. I cannot even begin to write about or even talk about it because there is so much that is going on. And now the saddest part of it is right now mass media has played a really, really critical, very, very critical but podcasts like these are not readily available to a lot of Africans. African youth would rather Google or search for westernized things that actually not benefit them but actually very destructive. And this is what we're pushing for, that we need more organizations, even including like yours. Your material should be out there, should be readily accessible. And I think I forgot to mention that, our chairman is involved in a project whereby they're trying to digitalize, information, books, articles, journals, so that to make them more, to come up with a digital library, to make this information available to our young people. Because we're realizing that, the problem that we're having is that any idiot with a smartphone can post anything, can tweet anything, and most of the time it's very detrimental to young people especially.
Oh, you've done a beautiful job. Yes. Thank you so very much.
Absolutely, sister.
Well, thank you very much.
Just know you all are not alone in this struggle. We all will continue to fight and ensure Pan-Africanism is on the horizon.
That's right.
No matter where we are in this world.
Absolutely, and we're very, very thankful for your support.
Take great care, and we're going to be in touch. So, forward ever, backward never.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
You too. Oh, that was really nice, wasn't it, Terrence? That was.
Yes, I was just saying, another enlightening discussion.
Wow, and the sister was right on it. I'm telling you. So, in subsequent months, we got one more month in this year, and with the help of invited revolutionary guests, we're going to discuss some other matters, and hopefully in December we're going to bring on another organization that is out there, really a movement struggling for our people.
Mama D, and it's just going to be a great way to end this year. If people have been listening to 2020 podcasts, Africa Must Unite, and hearing the struggle in Ghana and in the Congo and now in Zimbabwe, along with Cincinnati, it's been inspirational to say the least.
Yes.
And to know that there's others out there struggling for the same thing. So when we get to December and get to talk to this organization about this worldwide Pan-African movement, should be a great way to end this year.
I think so.
Continue.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, no, I was just going to say, join us next month, December, when we will be highlighting the need for Pan-Africanism. We will continue to highlight that need and feature somebody from the Worldwide Pan-African Movement, WAMPAM, the Worldwide Pan-African Movement.
And meanwhile, visit our website, prsponline.org, Email us at panafricanrsp@gmail.com. Like us on soundcloud.com. Visit us on YouTube and leave comments on our Facebook page.
Remember, people, organization is the key. Join us, the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, or some other revolutionary Pan-Africanist socialist organization. A union of African socialist states is on the horizon.
Yes.